My name is Arthur France. I'm an African born in the Caribbean. You could choose your nationality, but you cannot choose your race. We are Africans. I came here 1957. I was educated in the Caribbean. And one of the best things is I was born in the Caribbean and not in Europe. Now, we were taught when we was in the Caribbean that England was the home of education. England was the home of center of the universe. And to came here to find out we were way in front of England. Because I do not find out England only used to educate 8.5% of the population. And most of us came here and we were far more educated than the so-called white English people. Because if you look back, during the war, the youngsters who came from the Caribbean, most of them went to the Air Force because they were way above the average white man. And the problem is we were fooled because our history was hidden. But thank God now for the technology, all of that history is being exposed. And you could go on your mobile and you could find all of our rich history. Came here from Nevis. Left Nevis and St Kitts, two small islands, one federation, the two islands. Flight from St Kitts to Barbados, spent 3 days in Barbados, 13 days on a boat named Sorrento from Barbados to Genoa, train from Genoa to France, flight from France to London, to Dover, from Dover to London by train, and from London to Leeds by train again. Quite surprised when I saw England. But I couldn't believe this was the England. And it was cold, physically cold, and the people was very cold to you. A racist country, anyway. I got to Leeds. In those days, there was not flats, people living in rooms. And my sister, one of my sister was here, Elaine, married, and her husband was in the Air Force, and you couldn't get nowhere to live. I mean, I was living at number 1 Hamilton Avenue. And I had to live in a room with my sister and the husband. And that's what it was like. And nobody wanted to know you. And we managed to, a few of us came here. You see 1 or 2 black people, you know what I mean? So you have to make friends. But the good thing about it is how we gel together and work together. And I wanted to study architecture, but it wasn't going to happen because we had a whole reams of system to break through. And went to work for the British Railway. And then went on to Technical College, which was now the Beckett University, and did some building studies. And it was tough, but the problem is we were here and there was no way back. But the good thing about it, I was well educated in the Caribbean because I had an uncle who was Sir Joseph France, who was the longest reigning politician in the Caribbean. And so I was very, very well, trained by him because he realized I was young and very enthusiastic and very political, and he understood, and he made sure I got very well educated. Yeah. And I came from a very Christian religious background. Most West Indians came from a religious background. And it was good because your religion help to mold some of your morals. And he was very well educated because the teachers them were professional. I mean, most of the teachers I see in England they're just jokers. They're not very professional because turn out a lot of crap. When you tell me that someone spent 11 years in school and come out can't write a name in England, the problem is our education in Caribbean was set up by Britain, but they never had the same system here. Because in the Caribbean, you're not going to move from one class to the next. You got to pass all the subjects. But in England, they move you by your age. So you could read sixth form and can't write your name. And then I got very political before, and I got more political when I saw the racist system. And then I joined a brother-in-law of mine. He was in the army then, and we pick up on the Black Power movement and start preaching Black Power. And we find we were young, but there were families here with children. And we used to like education was my main passion. And we used to like to visit the home and see what the children are doing. And we go to parents' evening to hear what they're saying. And funny enough, most of the parents didn't like to see us coming to the parents' evening because we used to ask too much question. And, you know, a lot of us suffer from a complex. And you don't believe you should question a white man. But we realized we were dealing with some radical, ridiculous racist system. And we find when you visit a home and you don't see any books, something must be wrong here. And then we start to go through these children books. And we find sometimes they do maybe they work and they got maybe about the write down in the book, maybe 8 out of 10. And when you check, it was the other way around. 8 stuff was wrong. And we find a lot of discrepancy. And so, Cowper Street School, which is just up the road, it was in the middle of the area that most of these black children went. And we find the headmaster were racist. The school were racist. Pick up on that very quick. And then they had the chief education officer in Leeds. The name was R.S. Johnson. And the disrespect they had for black people, when parents go to meet them, they fluffing them off with all kind of a nonsense. But we won't stand for that kind of nonsense either. And so we took him on and challenged him. And we find it was only words. And so Cowper Street with most of the children, we went in and closed it down and shut in the school for a day, take the black kids out of school. And we hijacked the Church of God, had a church. So we asked them if they could use the church for a day to do some work with the children. And so we went through that. And then we were the first group to start Saturday schools. And so we started Saturday schools. And we picked up on a lot of stuff that was happening to our black children. And in fact, when Margaret Thatcher was Minister of Education, we had to take her on. Well, you had, before Margaret Thatcher had a chief education officer, the education minister, a man by the name of Keith Joseph, was the MP for our area. And he was ignorant. When you called him at a meeting, he get up and walk out. And then we went on to when he left and then Margaret Thatcher take up. And I don't know if you realize, you remember, there has a book out, it's still in print, named by Bernard Carter, how our children be made educationally subnormal. You could get it in Beacon's book because it's in Beacon's book in London, still selling it. And so we took that book on and we get that book, and there are some black children who was classified, they had a test where they were classified education as subnormal, and that was a lot of nonsense. And we worked out the test that you're giving black children was wrong because the test was set based on the community in which you developed. And so Bernard Card, a gentleman from Grenada, and he wrote that book, How the West Indian Children Made Education Subnormal, and make a mess of it. Because how could you got a child who failed that test, got about 30%, and in less than a year, they went back through the test and passed it with flying colors. Now, the city of Leeds High School the whole system was nasty, but it is the disrespect they have for us as black people, and that is what make you so annoyed and drive the wind up you. Now, you had 4 black youngsters went to city of Leeds, and you're supposed to take a test at a certain time. Now, they took the test and failed. But what they did, they didn't take them through the course. They make them take the test without going through a course. But they used to come to this, so we were well versed with how to handle the situation. So they said before they leave, they said they want to see the head. And they told the head, we're not going anywhere. You'll have to take us back through the course, and if we fail, you wouldn't have to ask us to leave. We would just leave. And it's amazing. That year, the 4 highest grades went to them 4 black youngsters. Now, one of them was a typical one of them was from a one-parent family, parents from Jamaica. And I didn't realize that we used to teach him at the Saturday school. And so it's amazing that we're teaching a techno now. And he came to me and he says to me he wanted to. Now, the family didn't believe he could make it because he had an uncle who used to tell me a waste of time. And that only goes to show how some of us was so colonial hoodwink that we eventually believed we wasn't up to the standard. But we knew because we had a damn good education in the Caribbean and our political aware in the Caribbean and understand the system. And it's funny enough, he came to me and he says to me one day he wanted to do his PhD in science. And so he came to me to help him. And I advised him to go to Germany to do his PhD in science because the world have this idea that the best scientists been trained in Germany. And he went, finished a PhD. One of the surprises I had, we were here fragmented and I thought, they had an organization when I came here. My sister and some friends had an organization set up called itself Afro-Asian and Caribbean Organization. And they used to keep dances and you like to dance. West Indian love to go out. And I thought, is this all they're doing? Is this what we end up with? And I thought, this is a joke. So my brother-in-law then, George, and myself, we were very political and cultural aware. And I used to go to meetings and don't say anything. And then I said to him, now you might read about it. We had a federation of the Caribbeans. And that was one of the best things I find that happened to us in the Caribbean when that federation was set up, because it was one government in the Caribbean Federation. And I've always, my uncle then was one of the top politicians on there. And so I was well grafted into it. And I came and I said, we need to set up a block organization that address some of our issues. We were just fragmented in different parts of the Caribbean and Africa. And I was very much into the art and the culture. And I remember when I was 5 years old in Nevis, they have this carnival in the Caribbean, you know. And in Nevis is over Christmas, last 3 days. And I remember my mom and dad, we have, never forget this, Christmas Day we finished Christmas dinner. And we just sat on the veranda and we heard the music coming up the road. Anyway, and I was overtaken by the art, that rich, the costumes and the music and the dance. It was, I could still see it right now. And I wanted to be part of it. And as I say, we here, fragmented, nothing much going. You can only go to, you had a dance, Christmas, Easter, with August, and that was it. And I felt we want an event to bring all of us together, that nobody need to be invited, you come. And so I think, I discussed with a few of my friends, I think we should have a carnival in England. And some, that was a good idea, and some think that was crazy. We want to come here to make us look like fool for the black man, for the white man. So I went to a meeting in the city, council meeting, and I suggested that we should have a carnival in Leeds. And everybody was excited. The white people, oh yeah, it would be nice. You could have a nice Asian group, Indian, Irish group. And I said, no, hang on a minute, you're going too far. I'm talking about a West Indian Carnival. Because I wanted to make sure that we are capable of doing things by ourselves, for ourselves, and not being led. Because once you went on that road, you're going to be in the back. This was quite interesting. One friend from Trinidad named Samlal Singh was living at number 7, London Terrace. And so that's where one of the house, we used to meet. And so this Saturday night, we were there as usual, and me and my partner, you're damn crazy, you know, fucking crazy. So anyway, so they trashing me. But one of my friends, the gentleman there on that far end, Willie, he was a medical student here at Leeds University. So he was one in the party, we was. And so he was living at Headingley, a couple of miles from, about 3 miles from here. And I was dropping him back home. And so he said to me, don't worry them, I'll give you a hand. When I was dropping him home, I said, right, we meet on Tuesday afternoon, 7 o'clock, number 3 Cowper Street. So it was him, the other one, the second from your right, Calvin Beach. That's one of my brother-in-law. And so it was Willie, Calvin, George, Vanterpool, a lady named Mrs. Gordon, and myself, we met. And we decided how we're going to do it. It's interesting. None of us have any money. None of us ever make any costumes. You know what I mean? And it was just while thinking, but we were very serious about it. And we decided that's what we're going to do. And we sat down and we started the first carnival. The steel band came from Birmingham. That was St. Christopher. And then we made 5 queen costumes, you know, and the carnival took off. Nobody believed. Most people came that night, and I'll never forget. They came to laugh at us because they didn't believe it could happen, but it did. And so after that, you had a gentleman by the name of Lord Montague, who lived in London. He used to run a London to Brighton car rally, vintage rally. And he went on television and said he think they should have a West Indian carnival in England. But he was looking at the Midlands. But when he heard we had a carnival in England, he contacted us and he booked a suite in the Queen's Hotel and came to meet with us. And so they were in London. We was invited to London one Sunday. It was a wet, rainy Sunday. Whole weekend was raining. We went down and that's how Notting Hill Carnival start. And here you are now. You can't stop it. But one of the things that I had in mind, I only wanted black people on the committee. This is a West Indian carnival, a celebration of emancipation of our forefathers that was kidnapped, drugged across the Atlantic. And this is what it was. And I knew I'm very a staunch black power man. And I want to come, everybody got this thing that black people cannot do anything. And I'm saying we are capable of doing things. And anytime I knew what pitfall could happen, because I'm a very staunch black person, and I don't want nobody to tell me to turn down my passion. And I know if you bring a white person on the committee, you're going to derail that organization. I do know that. Because even me, sometimes as a chairman, I have to write my message, a chairman message. And what's going to happen, sometimes they said to me, I've got to turn down some of I'm very passionate about our struggle, and I'm going to write it. That's facts. And they'll tell me, oh no, you have to turn it down. Why are you worried about who you upset? These are the facts. And so, here we are. Well, I find the police were racist, and they used to lock up a lot of young people. And I used to go there and confront them because I don't give a damn. Never mind, you may be the chief of police. You ain't going to talk me. And Calvin, and a very interesting thing, I had people, something like Calvin, my brother-in-law, both of them, and we were very radical, and we used to sort these out. And one of the main cases they ever had in Leeds was a bonfire night, and they had these youngsters locked up. And I never forget, it was the afternoon, an inspector went up to Calvin's house because to make a statement of that, you better got evidence. So Calvin said, well, do what you like. Call the case, and I'll bring me evidence. He wasn't going to back away from it. But, and so we realized that the police was more scared of us as a group than anything else. And then David Olawale was a guy came here from Nigeria, and he was a local loner, about on his own, quite friendly and not very, very docile, and need more help than anything else. And the police used to really treat him bad. They had two policemen, young policemen, who used to, wherever they be seen, they will call the two policemen and they'll pick him up, take him out of the city and throw him out and tell him don't come back in the city. And even sometimes he used to be in doorways in town and they will go and piss on him. These are the things they used to do to him. And it went on, and we supporting him, and then either way, he was murdered, and it was in the court. I remember we went to the courts during the case, and I couldn't believe that a judge who's supposed to uphold your rights would have been so racist. Anyway, and it's when you listen to the case and the death of David Olawale, one night they had these two policemen who used to treat him like a toy, knock him about. So whenever he be seen, anywhere he's seen, they got to call these two police and they will go and beat the hell out of him and lock him up on the town. And one of the things that got me was one night he was down Eastgate, somewhere in town, and he was there standing, and you were seeing, and they found the Millgard police station. So these two police went down, ready for beat up the toy. And all the policemen who used to drive the van, police used to have a Bedford van with the engine inside with an iron case. And his statement was, when they went down, he was just stood in the middle of the road crying. And these two police, and one of them went and grabbed him in a headlock and shoved him in the van. And they were beating and came in and hold him in the headlock and beating the head on the engine all the way to the police station. And when you get down to the police station, this big, heavy oak door, they took his head and opened the door with the head, bang his head, and went and threw him on the floor and kick him in the balls. And so when they kicked him, the guy went up. And when you understood what this guy went through, was torture, and to sit down in court and hear the judge direct the jurors, they actually lego these two policemen with all these evidence. But the right felt, honest to God, and people end up doing things that they never intend doing. So they felt they could have gone in the courthouse and showed the damn judges. I could understand what happened to George Jackson and Angela Davis them. I understood. Because at that time, we were very much into the Black Power movement into America, because people like George Jackson and Angela Davis and the Black Panther Party, we were very much into them because we used to feed off them, what were they doing? And we see it off until the end. A friend of mine, Mark Farrell, a white guy who actually spearheaded. If it wasn't for him, the outcome wouldn't have been the same. But he put a hell of a lot of work into it.